thank you for doing this interview with us. My name is Paige Bush. I'm a biology student, with a minor in chemistry.
I am Andrea Saucedo. I am a mechanical engineering major and I'm an ROTC.
And our cameraman is Jimmarcus Banks. He's a computer science major.
Okay.
And we would like to, our first question is, could you state your name for us, please, your position and the amount of time you worked at Prairie View?
Okay, I'm Harriet Howard Lee Block, and I serve as the department head of biology, and I've been at Prairie View for 28 years.
Thank you. And what is your educational background? Which schools have you attended, and what led you to come here?
And I'll just start with the college. I went to undergraduate school at Fisk University in Nashville, Tennessee, and from Fisk University I left there and actually took off a year because as a person or a student growing up, I was dancing quite a lot. So I decided when I came out of undergraduate school that I would take a year and fulfill that dancing dream that I like to do, and went to Memphis, danced for a whole year, and was talking with my sister and some other friends. And we were just saying, well, what do you really want to do? And I said, well, I need to go back to school. It had only been 1 year. So I decided that I would go to graduate school, and I went to graduate school at Atlanta University. It's now called Clark Atlanta University, and that's in Atlanta, Georgia. And that's where I actually did all of my research, beginning research work, and earned the PhD in developmental biochemistry and molecular biology.
What did you specialize then, and what do you specialize now?
My research area was dealing with repetitive DNA sequences, and back then what we were trying to do in my lab is to actually sequence the DNA, and I was working with quail, Colinus virginianus, that's a species of quail, and we were trying to find out the function of the repetitive DNA sequences, sequence it. The amazing thing now, the research that I did, and I was speaking with Dr. Gloria Regisford about this, who is one of the faculty members in this department, and we were talking about how quickly we could do the research now with the techniques that they have. Now they have a technique that's called polymerase chain reaction that can sequence the DNA in no time. And when I was doing it, it probably took me to do that whole gene, oh my gosh, with the genome, probably a good 6 months to maybe a year to do that, because you have to keep going back and going back. Now you can do it in the middle of no time.
What has motivated you to become a scientist?
You know, when I was in high school, I always was very curious, and my dad was a biologist. He actually was a philosopher and a biologist. He went to undergraduate school at Prairie View and went on and went to graduate school. He actually went to graduate school at University of Wisconsin, and back then he was the only African American in the program that he was in. And my mom, she was an English person. She went to an HBCU. She actually went to University of Arkansas Pine Bluff, and she taught English for a long time, but then she went back and got her doctorate in English. And those two combinations, with my dad being the philosopher in science also, and he eventually became a principal in Texarkana, and my mom having the English background that she had, there were just things that they cultivated in me and my sister as it relates to the sciences. The English part, my mom made sure that we had that down pat, but the scientific part, you know, we were always very curious. I would be in classes, and a lot of times people would try to steer you away from the sciences because that was near integration at that particular time, and you're in a setting where you might be the only African American in the class. Well, when you have people trying to discourage you, I know this is the way I look at it. I'm like, it must be something good about it if they're trying to keep me from doing it, so let me just see what it is. You know, and I would tell my dad, and he would say, oh, don't pay them any attention. I won't say exactly the words that he used, but I just knew that I did have a love for the sciences, and at some point that I would pursue it. But the strangest thing, when I got ready to go to college, my scholarships were for engineering. They had nothing to do with the sciences. And I told my dad, I said, you know what, I don't know if I have an interest in that. And he said to me, he said, you don't do anything that you don't want to do. You need to go into an area that you think that you're going to really like. So I actually chose the sciences at that particular moment. And that was the transition in going to Fisk University. And Fisk University is right across the street from Meharry Medical School. So we had, never was interested in medicine, but we had quite a lot of interactions with persons who had laboratories there. So we would see different things that were going on. Not at the degree that I probably needed it, but at least it let me know that I did still have that love for science. So it has continued to grow.
What are your highest aspirations for the students that you teach?
That their knowledge base, once they finish the class that I have taught them, is at a level of understanding and being able to handle the material, that they can discuss it and someone would know, okay, they did learn in that particular class. And a lot of times I think students, they get so hung up on grades that, and sometimes they will do anything to pass a class. And when I say anything, even from being integrity being questioned as it relates to, did you do it honestly? And that's a problem because they're so hung up on grades. But when you're in a course, I think you really should want to come out of there knowing something as opposed to just saying, okay, I got an A in the class, and if it's not an honest A, then that means nothing. So I always say to my students, you really need to have an understanding. If you can't talk about it if you don't understand it. And if you're memorizing science, it will leave you as soon as the exam is over. And a lot of times when you look at the exam, if you've memorized the material and didn't understand it, you will go blank once the exam gets in front of you. So at the end of the day, the knowledge base needs to be one that you have command of the class that you have taken, and someone who is talking to you will realize they really learned that material. And it represents Prairie View in a way to say that we do put out a product that is very competitive. No matter where you go, you can stand with the best and say, I know my stuff, I know my material, because I learned it here, I learned it there. So at the end of the day, the best thing that I want for my students is that they have excellent command of the subject matter, and anywhere they go, when they open their mouths, someone would know they did learn that particular subject at that particular university. And that's important to me. Not so much grades, but did you really learn something?
How does your scientific training impact the way you think and see the world?
Well, I think a lot of my students are so amazed, especially in the molecular biology class, that once they come into my class, everything that they've learned sort of comes to a pivotal point, and they're able to actually apply the information to things that are going on in their body. And I always tell the students that in science, everything revolves around those 4 major organic compounds. That's what we see every day in life. Things like your carbohydrates, your lipids, your nucleic acids, and the proteins. And in the class that I teach, the pathways will let you know that in order for your body to run right and you to be the healthy person that everyone wants to be, there's a maintenance that goes on, and you don't want the imbalance to throw off that maintenance. So therefore, if you understand how your body works and how the pathways work in your body with all of the organs that exist, then you will realize and appreciate a class like the level that the molecular biology class is on, and it will make you understand and say, okay, I've learned all of this information. I can go anywhere. I can go into any profession that I want because I know this material. This class is proving this to me. I can go into medicine. I can go into dentistry. I can go into a PhD program. I can go into a pharmacy program. I can go into an optometry program, a podiatry program, physician's assistant, physical therapy, any of those areas. And I didn't mention all of them because there are so many out there. But there comes a point when you want your students that when they walk out of these doors, the command, once again, of the material is there. And they are not shy. They are not afraid to answer a question because they know, okay, I may not be able to answer it right away, but I've seen this before. All I need to do is go back and just refresh my memory with some things and I'll have the material. And to me, at the end of the day, that's all that you can ask. If they graduate and they don't know that, then I feel at some point somebody dropped the ball. It might have been the student, it might have been the educational system going on here at Prairie View, but somebody dropped the ball if they are not able to do that. So you just want them to have a success so that when they go to the next level, they're not questioning and they're not afraid. They know, okay, I can stand on my own, I can handle this.
Well, what is your ideal dream as a scientist?
You know, I think my ultimate dream would be that every student, from the minute that they step foot in the biology department, understands just a little bit the value of actually time management skills, being able to prioritize, and seeking advice from persons who can actually help you, and not just listening to people who may be teaching you shortcuts to your successful endeavors and careers, but really has the interest of trying to make you that well-rounded individual so that at the end of the day, when you leave these doors, you are proud and you are able to move to the next level, and hopefully without any gaps or anything. It doesn't happen that way all of the time, but if I could see that in all of my students who come, that would be like a dream come true. It doesn't happen most of the time, and a lot of it has to do with when you come in as the freshman. A lot of students are immature, and you really, really don't understand the transition that is needed from high school to college. So you may not be able to make that transition.
Do you have any final words to encourage students who are viewing this video?
What I would say to them is follow your dream, follow your heart. If you're not feeling something, then you need to leave it alone. If you are in a department, and it doesn't have to be biology, it could be anything. If you are not in tune with what's going on, you may need to make a change. And I think one of the most important things, and I just told my daughter this, I told her that when I leave this earth, what you need to put on my tombstone is that I made a difference. And I think if you can go through life trying to make a positive difference with people, then at the end of the day, the time that you've served on earth, you've done goodwill and it was well served. And there is a song, it's a spiritual song that's called It Is Well With My Soul. And when you can say that at the end of the day and leave a legacy of one where persons desire to go for the highest that they can go, and realize that any dream that you have, it will come to fruition. It may take a little time, but it is possible to reach that. As long as you follow, as I stated in the beginning, follow your soul, follow your heart. Don't just do something because somebody else is doing it. And always remember that you did not get to wherever you end up by yourself. Somebody had to do something to help you. And you ought to want to go back and share that input from other persons who've helped you in your lives. You should be willing to go back and pull somebody, not just one, 2, 3, 4, 5, along with you to say, okay, this was my journey, this is my testimony. It might not have been easy, but if I did it, you can do it. And hopefully that will change that individual, make that difference, make that change that makes them want to go to the highest level that they can. Because I think one of the most selfish things that one can do is not try to help somebody else achieve something, and you're just in this world by yourself and never thinking of others. And one of the best things you can do is when you're helping people, forget about yourself. Don't always think about me, but how are you really doing? What are you really doing to help them? And if you can remember that at the end of the day, you should have lived a fulfilled life where you did make that difference. So it goes back to what I told my daughter, and I just told her, like I said yesterday, I made a difference. And I think I have so many students who mention that to me, and I said, you can put that on my tombstone, that I did make a difference.